These are photographs of a petri dish that was left open for 15 minutes or so. And then bacterial spores and fungal spores landed on the agar and started to grow. And if we take these here and, we can see them as individual frames, but if we put them together in rapids and then play them back, it appears as though we're watching the colony grow. So this is a type of time lapse. And if we start to manipulate the objects themselves rather than allowing photographs of real natural things, that's what we refer to as stop motion. It's a way of animating. So it's very similar. So let's say if I have a whiteboard, and on this whiteboard I draw an image here, and then I draw it here, and then I draw it here, and I draw it there, and I take four pictures. It's going to appear as though it's moving across if those four images are played back sequentially. So here's an example. Let's say that all of these different objects were drawn on in sequence, but then erased one after the other. So what that's going to appear is it's going to appear something like this. Again, I'll slow that down so that you can see a little bit more what's going on there. So there's actual individual frames, and so it appears to be moving, but in reality, it's just an animation of the and frame by frame is shown in sequence there. So stop motion animation requires you to, in this case here, have like a whiteboard and then draw something on it. Erase that position, draw in a new position, and then you'll see the motion of that object as it's played back. So the key thing is to set up your camera on some kind of a stand on a tripod next to a whiteboard, or whatever, if you're doing claymation, into like a little studio where you're going to manipulate the figures, and you're going to create an animation by simply taking a succession of pictures and putting them together. Now, here's an example. This is just a whiteboard, so this is showing stop motion animation for mitosis. So this was done through a stop motion app. So if you go to your app store, your Play Store, and download, type in stop motion, you'll find apps that will take pictures at intervals. Like, for example, let's say every time you clap your hand, the microphone picks up that noise and it triggers the shutter. So in this case here, if I set up the camera on a tripod, I'm looking at the whiteboard, and then I take a picture, clap my hand, or say clap my hands. It takes a picture. I erase it or change the positions of the relative items, and then snap again. It'll take another picture, and then it'll naturally sew them together in a movie. So here's what we did here. We can see that that we're seeing the process of mitosis here. Being pictured. This was actually done by a high school student, and they're trying to visualize what mitosis is simply by drawing it on the whiteboard, erasing, um, like where the chromosomes are, and moving them to new locations. So it's a good way for students to try to diagram processes, to try to understand relationships in time. It can be, looking at flow charts and so forth, but they're making short movies by just sewing together a number of individual frames, and the apps automatically turn things into a movie. So this is a time lapse on this side. This is gel electrophoresis. These are segments of DNA, and um, we are we're speeding up the process here, or the apparent speed, by taking frames at probably one frame every 3 minutes or something. So it appears as though these um, samples of DNA are moving at a pretty good rate there. Now, we could do the same thing here if we just drew a gel electrophoresis um, onto a whiteboard. Again, put the app on, clapped our hands, we could take pictures, and then when it's sewn together, we would get that same relative motion there. Now we can turn it off, and again, the viewer sees, oh, okay, so when the power's on, that We have a potential difference, which is drawing samples of the DNA across. So very simple, but again, a good thing for students to do to learn, how to animate something or how to create an animation of a process that they may be learning about in school. So here's some ideas for stop motion photography. Again, go to your app store. You can download some stop motion photography apps that make it easier. Just set your phone on a tripod, have a whiteboard, or some other way that you're going to display your pictures, and then just take successive pictures with that, and it'll sew them together.